Okay. So, hello everybody, welcome, and thank you for coming to the Hinsdale's Housing Market program with the Hinsdale Public Library. And I would like to take this opportunity to introduce Linda Dressler, who is our presenter this evening. So Linda is the president of the Mainstreet Organization of Realtors, the largest local association in Illinois, and the 7th largest in the country. And she has been a full-time realtor for about 15 years and is very active in her community, both for and with her profession, and loves to help people become educated to reach their real estate goals. And her tagline is helping from the heart. So certainly she's here to help us tonight. And thank you for joining us, Linda. And if you'd like to go ahead and introduce Jean, and you can take it away. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. I appreciate the introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Linda Dressler, as Lizzie just told you, and as an impromptu help for your education this evening, I thought that I would bring along one of my lender friends, because you most likely will have some kind of lending questions that you'll need answered along the journey that I could say, I think I know the answer, but I'd rather give you the person who knows the answer. So this is Jean Walters. You want to say a little bit about your background?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Jean Walters. I've been a mortgage guy for over 20 years. I've owned my own business, and I've just got an extensive amount of experience with all various types of loans and lending. So I'm here to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Oh, and I'll interrupt. I will say, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat and I will make sure that they get asked right away.
Thank you. So I was given from Mainstreet a bunch of stats because some of us really like to see numbers. Numbers can be very dry, so bear with me. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see some of the numbers of what's going on currently in Hinsdale, because that's your question, right? What's going on where I live? So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, here we go. Is it the right one? I think I'm going to do that one. Okay. All right, so what's going on in my local market? This is Hinsdale in July. We're already July 8th. I cannot believe the first half of the year is gone already. It just boggles my mind. What I'm showing you are statistics from Midwest Real Estate Data. They are the local MLS, and actually they're not just local anymore. They've spread so far as like Champaign, Peoria, and other places in Illinois. So if you're ever searching for properties there, we have access to them. But what I wanted to show you is, first off, median sales price. So in July of 2018, median sales price for a home in Hinsdale, single family home, was $860,000. And that is, I don't know, can you guys see my mouse if I put it on here?
Linda, we can see your mouse, but the way that it's showing us is it's showing us the screen with your notes and like
showing the whole thing. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me. Okay, hold on. You don't want to see my notes. I don't have any over there anyway. Hold on. Okay. There was one way that was.
I think.
No.
If you maybe say where it says swap under display settings, where it said swap presenter view, and
oh, thank you.
That might do it. Let's see. Let's see if it works.
That's what you want. Okay.
Yeah, that looks great. Yeah.
I apologize.
No worries. And we can see your mouse.
You can. Okay. So this is July of 2018, where it was $860,000 for the median sales price. Then the following year, July, is up here, and it's 840. So we lost 20,000. When we got down to the pandemic, this is the peak down here, the valley down here, of 817.5. And then now in July of 2021, we're up to 865. So that's good news. So we're up over the pricing from July of 2018 by $5,000 for median sales price. Month supply of homes for sale. This is all basic economics, supply and demand, right? So in July of 2018, about here, we were at 8.1 months of supply. In July of 2020, we were at 8.9 months. And in July of July of 2018 was 8.1 months. July of 2019 was 8.9. July of 2020 actually was the same at 8.9. And June, because we don't have July statistics, is down to 4.6 months supply. What's important to know about this when we talk about supply and demand is when supply is low and demand is high, that's what squeezes up the prices. So that's why you've got the increase in prices that we have. Now, a lot of people have been hearing in this market that we don't have a lot of inventory. Inventory is going down. Average inventory, a balanced market is about 6 months inventory. So you see you're below a balanced market in Hinsdale, which makes you more of a seller's market there for the first time in a while. You'll see that new listings has ticked up. Here in 2018, there was 1,003 new listings that July. You go to the next peak here and you've got 1,046. Then you've got July of 2020 here. We were down because of the pandemic. A lot of people didn't want to sell their house. So the listings were down to 962, and you come back up here to June and you've got 1,045. So that's pretty standard across the years. You had that little dip during the pandemic, but it's back at normal steady rate for new listings. It's average. Then we have homes for sale. So in July of 2018, we had 237 homes in Hinsdale for sale. In July of 2019, sorry, this shouldn't be here, 265. In July of 251, even though there was a pandemic. It's really close to the other years. And then June, this is the one that's a little more shocking, only 176. So that's a pretty deep dive. You know, you've lost about 100, 80 to 100 homes there for sale. Again, that's what's trending. That's what the shift is. That's why the pricing is going up. We had so many people uncertain, right, of where they were going to move, what they were going to do. Could they buy a house where they were going? I've not seen this in my 15 years where it's so far spread across the country to be the same kind of market going on. But it caused so much uncertainty that people just stayed put. The listings weren't coming on. Things seem to be softening a bit now. We seem to be getting more listings. Your area, there are not right now, which is good news if you want to sell. If you want to buy there, it's not necessarily good news because pricing is going to be a little bit higher for you than it normally would be. And the inventory is lower. There are less houses to choose from. What have you seen in lending?
Well, in lending, they've loosened up a little bit more now. Values are an issue because home prices have gone up so much, and sometimes the values aren't warranted in the areas. So there's sometimes you run into appraisal issues. But overall, it's been pretty strong. Rates have been really low. They've been staying really low, knock on wood. Self-employed people who are self-employed, those are the ones that are under the microscope right now because of COVID. But the underwriters have been loosening up a little bit on that. But if you're a self-employed borrower or buyer, you're gonna go through a few more steps and a bit more paperwork.
Well, because they're worried about your job security
Yes.
too, because so many people lost their jobs during COVID or were put on, put on leave, temporary leave until they could figure things out. So there may be gaps that show in your income there for the time that you've spent off of your job.
Right.
So they're gonna check into all of that for you. Let's go to the next slide. So in Hinsdale itself, unfortunately, the statistics don't update till the second week of the month. So I don't have June statistics, but I have May's last year to this year. So the change in new listings were up 20%, which is interesting because we're still low, right? The closed sales are up 80%. We're selling a lot of homes there. And the inventory change is -40. So that's just showing you that things are dropping. For a long while, let me explain a little bit, and you guys may already know this from living there, but the prices the homes that were at higher prices, there seemed to be an abundance of. And that makes it a buyer's market. So a few years back where you saw those graphs higher to the left side, you had more abundance of homes for sale, which meant they were more difficult to sell and the pricing was lower. You couldn't find the buyers. Unfortunately, at this point in time, there are people who are leaving our state. The taxes can be high. It can be a deterrent, right, to what's going on. This I find very interesting. I have to move my little face because it's in the way. So if you look May of 2020 to May of 2021, you'll see new listings are up in 2021. There are some people who are putting their house on the market even when it isn't ready because they've heard it's such a hot market to sell in, and that they could recuperate more on their investment, their real estate investment. So a lot of people are just trying to see if they can get it done, right? And get an increase on their investment when they saw it dip down to, what was it, 817, right, a few years ago, and now that it's back up to 865 as median, they want to take advantage of that. You'll see here that under contract, under contract is up almost 200. Closed sales is up almost 200. The median price, according to this May to May, was up to 937.5, which is even higher than what is reported on the other stat that I had. And the average sale price is over $1 million, 1.17. And the nice thing is some of those higher price homes, you have a bigger gap in your listing price to your sales price, right? Meaning you list it for $1 million, you get 800, right? So usually you can have a bigger gap. It's showing that the gap is closing between listing price and sales price from 91% to almost 94%, which is awesome if you're in the market to sell. And the average market time has gone down as well, 149 days. So 3 to 4 months to get it sold because the inventory is low. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, when you're in this dollar range, I think the reason why we had some of these things happen in 2020 was because a lot of people in this dollar range are the self-employed buyers or borrowers. And it was a lot harder for them to get mortgages, but B, their businesses weren't doing very well. So they weren't out there really shopping and buying in that dollar range. So it was causing sellers to have to lower their price a little more to attract maybe a different buyer or to attract a buyer in general.
Well, and you might see a trend wherein there are people moving into larger homes like the homes in Hinsdale because they realize now they're going to be working at home. Some jobs didn't shift back. Some jobs are changing. Some jobs are going to be a hybrid of being at work and being at home, and they may need the space at home to have home offices and spaces for their children. I know that most people are back to school, but they've gotten used to that shift a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how the world pivots moving forward when it comes to going into work, staying home, what kind of spaces therefore they then need, what size yards they need, what accommodations that they need. Now, in case you're in attached single family homes, I didn't want to not include those. So they're not quite as drastic. New listings are up 30, under contract is up about 40, closed sales is up about 30. You've got a little bit of a jump in your median and your average sale price. But again, with them, the list price to sale price is going up and the market time is going down. So that's always good trending to see when you're wanting to sell. And this is just the graph of the whole thing. So I'm going to turn off my slideshow because I want to just have a discussion with you. We don't have tons of people here, but I want to be able to answer your specific questions because that's why you came here tonight. So I would like to open the floor to chat so that you can ask any trending things, any market things, any appraisal questions, anything that you have, so that we could give you the education or answers that you need so that you can make the best decisions for your family in this crazy market that we're finding ourselves in. So let me stop sharing. Look at that, my mouse works on my backward screen, but not my frontward screen. There we go, stop. There we go.
So anybody, please feel free to unmute yourselves, or you can put your question in the chat and I will make sure.
Either is fine, yeah.
But Linda, maybe I'll start off, like, what do you think the trend is going to be in Hinsdale, like over the next few months? I know we were talking briefly before we started about how maybe the sales are slowing down a little bit. I'm curious what you think.
You know what? In a typical spring market, the sales do start slowing down around this time of year because people usually when they move in our climate, where we live, they move over the summertime between when school lets out and school begins because they want to have someone, typically their kids, into whatever school they want them to go to in the fall, right? So we see stuff slow down around now because it takes an average of 4 to 6 weeks to complete a contract once you've found something and gotten under contract. So that timing right now would be mid-August, and my goodness, schools start earlier and earlier, I swear. They're starting by, August 18th, August 20th, and people want their kids to be in place and settled before that has to all start. I am seeing in my area more listings come on, so I think it's still going to stay a strong market into the fall. Dr. Lawrence Yoon, who's a chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, has told us emphatically that it is not another bubble, that he sees us increasing again even next year. We increased, usually it's on average 5 to 7% a year nationally. This year it's been 10, and he sees another 10. So I'm thinking this is going to go 18 to 24 months out, where we're still going to see the stranglehold kind of on the inventory that's causing that to kind of go up before it really flattens, right? And just, I don't think it's going to drop, but I think, at one point it'll get a little steadier.
And do you guys think that is driven partially because interest rates are so low, and will they stay this low?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are they going to raise soon, Jean, do you think? Like, I've been wondering that personally if I'm looking to buy.
Well, I don't think so. The market drives the rates. So I think that as long as the economy, stays rather steady, we already saw the increase in rate due to all the new stuff that came about with the new administration. So I don't think we're going to see too much more of an increase in the near future. It'll fluctuate, up and down, but really anything that even if there was an increase, anything that we would see historically is phenomenal. It's nice to see rates back under 3 again, but even rates at 4 historically is just incredible. And to be able to borrow money that cheaply if people are kind of jumping at that chance, but I don't see them moving up, into the high threes or over 4 in the near future at all. At least not, I don't think, at least not this year.
Well, if you think about it, even if you have to wait to buy because the inventory is not here, there are a lot of people with buyer frustrations right now because with the inventory being low, sometimes there are multiple offer situations going on. Sometimes you miss out on 1 or 2 homes before you finally get a contract to stick. But with interest rates that low, you're not losing out, and you're still, if you're buying, you're putting money in your own piggy bank. It's going in your own pocket instead of wherever you're renting and letting the landlord pay off his mortgage.
Yeah. Well, I do have a question from Aaron in the chat. What are the important items buyers are looking for today?
Oh, goodness. It seems like today's buyer wants everything done on the home, right? They don't necessarily want to have to update, right? Who wants to buy it and then have to live through updating? They just want to kind of go in and not worry about it. The things that buyers really should be looking at versus a granite countertop, in my opinion, as a buyer's agent, would be the age of the mechanicals, the HVAC, the water heater, right? You want to make sure those are newer, because if they're not, you're going to have to budget to buy one, right? Within the so many years, depending on the age of those appliances. Your appliances in your kitchen, your washer, dryer, those things you'll have to budget for too, if they're not new. Big ticket items would be windows. You want to make sure that windows are newer and have been updated. A lot of the homes were built a long time ago, and people can paint over wooden windows. Doesn't mean that they are new windows. Have your eyes wide open. It's hard to look as a new buyer without the honeymoon eyes. So try to be as practical as you can be when you're going to view homes. And then the roof. The roof is a big one too. If the roof's been redone, those are some of the biggest expenses in buying a house. So those are the things that I would look for.
Not haunted.
Not haunted house.
Haunted. Or maybe haunted.
Or maybe haunted if you like that.
Good selling point right now. What I'm finding right now with some of the buyers is they're taking a home that might not have all those upgrades, upgraded appliances, countertops, things like that, for the same price as homes that we're selling that were upgraded because there's not much available. But now that we're hopefully seeing more homes starting to come on the market, people will have more of a choice, and they won't feel that they're forced into overpaying per se for the things in the house that aren't updated because of lack of choices.
Yes. I saw that like crazy, probably early in the spring. You have a house for sale that has what looked like an original HVAC system that was like 30 years old, right? I mean, expected life is 15 to 20 years, and that's if you've kept it maintained. So, but they were selling it for the same market price as every other house, and were sticking when it came to negotiations. So that's a very valid point.
Well, on a similar note, Trista has a question, which is that they're currently redoing their kitchen and is wondering if there are any must-haves in the market right now.
Oh, redoing your kitchen. Everybody seems to want, granite or quartz, some kind of hard, solid surface countertop. Could be.
Let me interject
really
quick.
Ahead.
There's a difference between putting things in for investment value.
This is true.
And putting things in to sell a property. You might not get back your money.
You will not get back your money
by what we might call over improving for the area, but at the same price, they might choose your home over the next one that doesn't have the granite countertops versus the non-granite countertops. So you might not get your money back, but you might be chosen over the next house. But Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, the two best places right now for value and for curb appeal, as we call it, are kitchens and bathrooms, correct? And open concept.
Open concept is still big. Kitchens and bathrooms, yes. And what Jean says is true. So I don't want you to assume that if you put $40,000 into your kitchen, that means you're going to add a $40,000 price tag to your home selling, right? That you never get 100% back. I always suggest to make changes for you to live there, right? Because you should enjoy them. And if you're making the changes just to sell them, you really have to trend with what's going on in the neighborhood to make sure you have the same quality. So if you do granite, you need to make sure that it's, the same quality as your competition, as Jean said, so that you'd be able to be picked right and part of the selection, and not someone who's pushed to the side because you don't have the same thing. But
For example, I had a buyer in Des Plaines who they purchased this home, and then they marbled the entire home. Now, I'm not talking about all the countertops. They marbled the walls.
oh my goodness.
They marbled the floors, everything but the ceiling. And they put over $100,000 into all this marble, and they couldn't figure out why their home wasn't appraising for what they needed to, because they put $100,000 into it. But that's an over improvement. It's a white elephant. It might have looked great. I don't know that I would have done that. I had a similar one with mirrors.
You'd have to find a very specific buyer
Yeah.
for something like that.
People do have their own tastes.
Right.
Yes.
But Trista just is clarifying that she is doing it for them to live with, but she's referring to appliances. So, are there any things like in the future that might be really interesting? So a wine fridge or a double onion oven versus like an oven with a micro or something like that.
A lot of people are looking for convection ovens. Double ovens are always a plus. If it's a large home, where you're expecting a large family to move in, always a plus.
Get double dishwashers too.
Double dishwashers? Really?
I have one.
You have a double dishwasher? Okay, double dishwashers, I guess.
Are there any brands that are like really appealing? Like,
I'm sorry?
Are there like certain brands that are worth the money as far as like?
When you're talking about kitchen appliances, when he mentioned dishwashers, Bosch came to mind for me. It's a really quiet, good quality appliance. Viking is very popular for expensive, but very popular. It's a good brand. It's something that'll last for a long time. Those are the types of things, though, that I would buy if I were staying there. I don't know if I would buy that to leave for someone else.
You might want to take it with you when you leave.
Right.
Put something else in.
I would say just your biggest thing is people are looking for the suites to match. You don't want Samsung this and LG that, something else this. I think that the people are trending, stainless isn't necessarily in anymore. It's the black stainless or the fingerprint proof stuff that's out there now that is more trending.
I have the Wi-Fi fridge with the screen.
I have a knock. Yeah.
And I have an Alexa microwave.
Fun.
To make everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't have any more questions in the chat, but please, people, attendees, feel free to add any questions or unmute yourselves. I'm kind of wondering about like multiple offer situations. Do you think that given the lack of inventory on the market, that is going to keep happening and that people are going to go so far over asking price, like, in the future? Is it worth getting into a multiple offer situation or backing out? Like, what, just broadly?
It really depends on how much you love the home. Any realtor you have should have tools in their toolbox to help you get through a multiple offer situation. What I've seen trending is there are two things that are trending. One is called an escalation clause. And what that is rather than writing a dollar amount on an offer where you're afraid maybe that you're overpaying by $10,000 because you've overshot the price, you write, it's an escalation clause, which in effect says, I offer to pay you $5,000 or $2,000 or whatever dollar amount you want over the verified highest and best offer you have. So in essence, you shoot to the top when it comes to price. Now, there are more things than price that are attractive to a seller. Maybe a flexible closing date because they've got a bunch of stuff they need to pack up and they really aren't ready. You know, maybe the type of mortgage or lending that you have may be more attractive, right? So you really have to have a good team to be able to counsel you on all these things, right? And you have to be ready for it because it is emotional. You know, you have to make sure you have professionals that can stay very even keeled, take the emotion out of it because you don't need help being more, you know, stressed, and counsel you through it. Like you could do A, B, or C. What are you more comfortable with? You know, I've seen this work or that work, right? To try and help you through it. You have anything else on that as escalation clause or?
You know, when you do the escalation clause, you have to be ready to possibly overpay for the property. And the biggest challenge right now is just because the value might not come in and the appraisal might come in less than what you're willing to pay, doesn't mean the property's not worth what you're willing to pay. It just means that there might not be other comparables that can be used because of the lack of closings in the area. And to expound a little bit on the team that you have working for you, a good, when you're selling your property, your listing agent, when considering the multiple offers, needs to look at not just down payment, but is the buyer self-employed? If the buyer is self-employed, what's their business? Because just because they have 30% down doesn't mean they can get that mortgage. They might have issues with that mortgage, and somebody else putting 5% down that been working for ComEd for 25 years and has a bunch of money in their 401k that they're not using, they're just doing the 5% down, might be a much stronger offer than the 30% down buyer. And they have to also remember that earnest money is a comfort food. If you're a seller and just because your buyer has more earnest money doesn't mean they're a better candidate, because you think that money is at risk, but really it's not at risk. I mean, it looks better and it makes everybody, gives a little warm fuzzy, but just because they have more earnest money doesn't mean that they're a stronger candidate, because there's always ways to get that earnest money back from an attorney's point of view. So yes, it's nicer to have a buyer that has more earnest money, but it's really more of just a warm fuzzy paper shuffle.
So if you're a buyer, you may want to give them the warm fuzzies.
Yes,
you may want
to your advantage as a buyer.
You may want to offer more earnest money,
right,
with an additional set of earnest money after the inspection's over, because ultimately, and I don't know what mix we have on the Zoom today that are sellers or buyers, but ultimately a seller, when they get to point of selling their commodity, while they have emotional ties to it and memories to it, it is, after all, a business decision. It's a commodity. It's something they're selling and they're seeing dollar signs. So anywhere we can make them think they're seeing more dollar signs is more to your advantage, right? So that would be that. The other thing that I've seen trending is an appraisal gap waiver. That's a little scary to me, unless you're flush with cash, unless you really, really gotta have this house and love it. What that in essence says, your realtor can talk to you about it, but it says, if my house should happen not to appraise at the price I've offered, let's say you've offered, like in our examples, $850,000 for this house, I will pay up to, again, fill in the blank, $20,000 over the underappraised amount, not to exceed my contract price. So you're saying you're willing to bring some cash to the table. If you're getting any kind of lending, right, your lending is only going to pay as much as it's been appraised for. So if it was appraised at 800, right, and now you put 850 on the contract and you gave them that appraisal gap waiver, you're in essence telling the seller when you give that offer that you're willing to pay 820. However, they'll not know that till they have the appraisal where it's going to appraise at. Now, if it appraises at 850, you're good. You're good to go, right? If it appraises over, you've got equity. That's even better for you as a buyer. But that's another trend that I've seen, coming along. There have been people who escalate and overpay for the price of their home. And I can't, as a realtor, I can't make the decision if the house is worth it to you to do that. I can't tell you, I've told you what Dr. Yoon said about trending and what he thinks values are going to be at, but I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you if your value is going to stay there a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now for what you've paid for your house. So you just have to take all of these things into consideration.
But this is also how values increase in your neighborhood. If it only appraises at 800 and you go ahead and pay the extra 20, and that makes a closed sale in the neighborhood at 820. So the next person selling in that neighborhood now has a closed sale of 820 versus 800 to help increase their value, which then effectively in the future increases your value.
Well, and sometimes it's not that your house isn't worth that, because the trending prices have been moving up so fast. Like I said, your contract to close is about 6 weeks. There could be other properties trending at the same price as what you're paying in here, but if they don't show up as closed before your appraisal's done, those values aren't showing up in the data. So the appraiser is not finding the comps to be able to give you a higher value. But it's because everything's squeezing so tight and so fast that's happening right now.
And then you have some homes that maybe in this example, it appraises for 800, but every other house that you found for 800 doesn't have all the upgraded appliances and upgraded countertops. So if you were to buy one of those other ones at 800, you might have to spend 50,000 to bring it up to that same level. But because of where all the comps lie, it just wouldn't appraise right. So it still could be worth that higher value just because
for you to pay.
The way the appraisers are handcuffed a little bit right now. They can't appraise it actually for what it's worth.
That's really interesting. I've learned a lot tonight. A lot. So I don't see any other questions in the chat. Let's give it just a minute in case anybody has a last minute question. But while we wait, is there anything else that you really think buyers and sellers in Hinsdale in particular should know or take into account over the next few months?
Okay. If you're considering listing your house, of course, the sooner is the better, because right now we know where we're trending. We can give you succinct data, right, for right now. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't consider it or move towards it. If you have things to do ready to get your home ready, do whatever you need to do them to get ready. Sometimes you can have friends in to look around your house, right, and be brutally honest with you, because we don't see sometimes the stuff in our own house that needs to be done versus outside eyes. I would say a fresh coat of paint always helps. I would say you always want to create the illusion of space. I would say you always, if possible, want to make your house look like a model home. Like if you're going to an Airbnb or to a vacation rental, what would you want to step into, right? If you're selling this house. One of my best tips is, if you have children, even if you don't, if you keep a couple empty laundry baskets and you're listed and it's time to show, and oh my gosh, you had a party, you didn't have time to clean up or whatever, scoop everything into those baskets, toss them in a closet, and then come back to them later. Then your house is ready for showing. And don't overlook your outside spaces or your curb appeal. It's very important, because that's the first impression a lot of people are seeing. And if they see something from the outside that just doesn't meet their fancy, They may not even step into your home. They may just tell your realtor, let's pass this one and go to the next one.
What about selling and then buying with a contingency? We'll talk about that a little
Oh,
bit. Maybe
well,
rent back or something.
so if you're selling, I have seen a trend. If you're moving someplace else and it's further than that 6 weeks, like you list it today and you know you're not moving until September 15th, right? You have your realtor put that in the remarks, cannot close until September 15th, so that people looking know to put it on the contract. Again, in this instance, if you're a buyer who can wait until that September 15th and isn't expecting to close in a month or 6 weeks, your offer might be more attractive to that seller because you're giving them that leeway. In a normal market, you can usually rent, still close and rent it back. But many people are just choosing to wait. What a rent back means is you close, let's say you close in the normal 6 weeks, which would be mid-August, and then that seller gets to stay there until the 15th. That month's worth of money is just put in an escrow account, right? And then you do an inspection when they're ready to move out to make sure the property's in the condition, you purchased it in, and the money is released to you as the new buyer for renting it back to them.
So as a seller, you're renting back from your new buyer, giving you time to close on your new home without having to sell with a contingency, maybe.
Yeah, because selling with a contingency can be tough, very tough in this market, because that lines up more hurdles that have to be jumped. So if you have to sell and it's not listed, you have a home sale contingency. Well, even if it's listed, it's a home sale contingency. Then you have the home closing, which is the next hurdle, because it has to close for you to buy, maybe financially, maybe due to your lending. Then you've got the inspection, then you've got the appraisal, then you've got the mortgage. So there are more things to jump over, more dominoes that can fall. So the more you can alleviate those dominoes as a buyer, the more attractive the offer is to the seller.
Well, and you have said that it is definitely a seller's market. Is it a good time to be a buyer, or would you recommend waiting?
The advice I've given to my own children is if you can stand to wait a little bit, it might be a good thing. Only because my heart hurts, and helping from the heart, it really hurts for these buyers who are so stressed and so frustrated because they've lost out on 3 contracts and oh my gosh, right? And if you wait a little bit, the interest rate is pretty stable, right? And we hopefully inventory will beef up a little bit. Okay, so I'm saying that from an emotional standpoint.
Stress level,
right? But at the same token, if you're really ready to make this move, if you can find the house that you like, if you have a good professional team backing you up, right, that can help you with the decision of the best way to make an offer look attractive, you're putting, like I said, you're putting that money now when you buy it into your own piggy bank. It's going into your own pocket. You have, tax saving ramifications. There are other benefits that come to you buying that house. This is the great American dream. You're building your own wealth. That is something that is in your portfolio. So I would still say if you can, and you can work through the challenges, the emotional challenges that are right now part of this market, that you should still continue to move forward and look for a house.
And I believe everything good is worth fighting for. So if you could stomach the multiple offers and be able to get through that stress, everything, in my opinion, and what I believe is everything happens for a reason. That right house is there for you, and you might have to fight for it. You might have to, kick and scream, and some sellers won't accept any love letters right now.
I was just going to bring up love letters.
But I did a love letter when we bought my house. And
explain what that is.
So a love letter is a heartfelt letter from you as a buyer to the seller, kind of explaining who you are, why that house would be good for you, things like that. And we did that, and we put a picture of my daughter in there, and we actually won out on our multiple offers. This is going back 6 or 7 years. We won out on multiple offers, and we were 5,000 less than the other offers.
Oh,
But the woman selling the house had just lost her husband. They built the house. They lived there for 30 years, and they raised their kids there, and they liked the fact that we were in that same kind of scenario like what they were back then. And I think there was an investor that was looking to buy it, even though it wasn't an investment type of property. It was renovated. So he was just not going to live there. He was going to rent it out. And then there was another couple that didn't have kids, and they just liked what they saw in us. And I remember we were at my daughter's birthday party at a restaurant called El Maison when the realtor called and told us that they chose us, and we needed to get it signed right away. So we had to break away from the birthday party and go sign the documents out in the parking lot.
wow.
Well, and what he said is some realtors are not allowing those
Letters. Say
Mm.
no love letters. We don't want any
love
emotion.
letters, those love letters to go through to their sellers. But as I told you, it's a personal decision of those sellers, and not just money. Sometimes, I sounded very cruel when I said, they're seeing dollar signs, but there still are emotions attached. And if you have a young, if you have a young family moving in and you love the schools, or the reason why they're starting to decide whether or not they're going to be allowed is you as a seller cannot discriminate against fair housing classes. And one of those is familial status, it's race, color, religion, national origin, all those things. So sometimes that may come across in a picture or a love letter. And so you have to be kind of careful with that stuff. But that is something that's been used. Yeah. I remember one time just saying, oh my gosh, your address of your house is the same address of the house they're leaving, just on a different street. They were so excited and tickled when they realized this was their forever home. So it had nothing to do with, really family or any of that other stuff, but they got it too in a multiple offer situation.
Got it. Wow. Well, that is really, like I said, a wealth of information. I hadn't heard about love letters either. So I've learned a lot, and I hope everybody else who was able to attend tonight did as well. I still haven't seen any other questions. So I think that, I think that really you provided so much valuable information, Linda and Jean, and I really appreciate it. I know everybody else does. And thank you so much for presenting for us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank
and
you.
We'll have to check out that sub sandwich. What's the name of the restaurant?
Gaetano's. Yeah, come to Forest
Gaetano's.
Park. We'll get lunch. I would love it. Send me an
Thanks
email.
everybody for tuning in. If you have individual questions, feel free to reach out. We're going to make the slides available for you so you can have the stats.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. Enjoy your weekend coming up, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.